Welcome everyone to Digital Marketing Technology. This is Module 1. I am your professor, Dr. English Dowdell. Now, before we dive into this lecture, I'd like to take a few minutes to review how this course is going to work, especially since this is the beginning of the course. This is the first module. I want to walk you through a few important things so that you know what this class is about, what you'll need, and what to expect. So first, let's talk about the technology requirements. There are 3 things that you absolutely must have for this course. Number 1 is access to a computer. You're going to be watching videos, you're going to be reading material, and you're going to be completing assignments digitally. Now, the second thing that you'll need is a Gmail account. Now, we'll be working a lot with Google Ads in the second half of the semester, so you'll be using Google Skillshop. Now, if you don't already have a Gmail account, please make sure that you set one up early in the course. And then the third thing is the ability to watch videos and read materials online through Student. Everything you need for each module is going to live inside the course modules, and it's going to connect you to the Student interface. Now, if you encounter any technical issues, please let me know as soon as possible. Don't wait until, different deadlines approach. Now, let's talk about why this class exists. Now, my main goal here is basically to prepare you for the workforce. A lot of classes give you theory, but this course focuses on skills you can actually use. Whether you end up in digital marketing, social media, some kind of marketing role, doing some administrative work, or any job where digital tools are part of what you do. Everything we cover is going to be real world applicable. Another big goal is critical thinking. I don't want you to just do the assignments to get a grade. I want you to think about, why a strategy works, why one approach might be better than another, how digital marketing decisions impact real businesses. And yes, questioning things is going to be part of that, and that's a good thing. Finally, this course is designed to help you prepare for the Google Ads certification exams. Now, this course is basically split in half. In the first part, we're going to focus on digital marketing business concepts. We're going to talk about strategy and how digital marketing actually works behind the scenes. This is going to be the foundation. Now, in the second half, we're going to shift into talking about Google Ads. And this is going to be more of a hands-on part, learning the platform, understanding targeting, budgeting, ads, and performance. So your final project then is going to be creating a Google Ads campaign for a fictional business. Now, there are 3 major things at the end of this course. First is a final paper covering the digital marketing concepts from the first half of the course. And you'll have plenty of time, about, if you plan your time out correctly, about a month to complete it. Second, your final project, and that's going to focus on the Google Ads. And then the third is an actual final exam that you're going to take. Okay, so your main textbook is going to be a digital textbook through Student. It's updated regularly, so you're going to be learning the current industry trends. Now, we're not going to read it from cover to cover. We're only going to look at selected chapters that matter for what we're doing. You'll also have different articles that you'll be looking at, different videos, and Google Skillshop lessons. Now, everything that you need is going to be inside of each of the modules within Canvas. Now, the second half of the course is going to focus heavily on Google, and that's intentional. Google is the most widely used search engine, and businesses already understand and trust it. Knowing Google Ads is going to be a valuable skill to include on your resume. You control the budget, you're going to see the results quickly, and the analytics are built in. Now, Google Ads also connects easily with Google Business Profile, Google Maps, and Google Analytics. Now, once you understand Google Ads, the rest of the Google ecosystem just becomes much easier. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is support. So if you ever need, one-on-one help, I'll be happy to meet with you. I respond to emails within 24 hours. You know, if you need to meet with me, they need to be scheduled in advance. And my availability, is most evenings after 6 o'clock on Teams. Okay, so kind of mental discussion time. I want you to think about your online activity just from today. How many apps or websites or platforms have you already interacted with? Which ones do you expect to track you? Which ones surprise you? You know, and knowing this, does this change how you feel about using them? So take a moment and think about that. Okay, so this module's lecture is going to focus on technology laws, specifically those related to data privacy. Now, it's no secret that the internet collects information about us, what we do, where we go, what we search for, what we buy. The information is stored, it's analyzed, and it's used in a lot of ways, especially in marketing. Now, as a result, data privacy has become a significant issue in recent years, directly impacting digital marketing professionals. So much of today's lecture, or this lecture that we're going to have for this module, is going to focus on, how data is collected, what kind of data is collected, what happens to it, and what laws exist to protect consumers. Now, one of the first concepts introduced in the textbook chapter that you're going to be reading in this module is the idea of digital footprint. Now, a digital footprint is essentially the trail that you leave behind online as you move from website to website or app to app and platform to platform. So think of it like leaving footsteps or footprints in the sand. You might not see them, but they're there. Okay, so for example, you wake up, you check Gmail, then you scroll Instagram, later you log into your online banking app. All of these actions are recorded in some way, and that collection of behavior is what makes up your digital footprint. So your digital footprint, it's built from your online behaviors, the websites you visit, the apps you use, the searches that you perform. All of that information is being tracked and added to a digital profile that's associated with you. Now, that profile doesn't usually show your name directly, but it does reflect who you are based on how you behave online. Now, one of the main reasons this data is collected is for business and marketing purposes. Businesses use this information to personalize ads, to target specific audiences, to improve marketing effectiveness. Now it's essential to clarify something here, okay? Businesses aren't logging into Google and seeing you personally with your name and personal details. Instead, they're targeting categories of users. So for example, a business might say, I want to target people aged 18 to 24 who are interested in home decor. So if you fall into that group, then you might see the ad. But the businesses don't see you individually. They don't see your individual identity. Now, a big part of this tracking happens through cookies. A cookie is a small piece of code that's embedded in a website that allows the site to collect information about the visitor. You've probably noticed those cookie banners that pop up asking you to kind of like accept the cookie. That's what they're referring to. Now, once you accept, then the site can track things like the pages that you visited, the time that you spent on the website, or any past interactions. Now, Google Ads also tracks web browsing behavior. So if you visit a website and then you leave without buying anything, that site can remember you. Later, you might see ads for the same business elsewhere online. And this is called retargeting. That's why you sometimes feel like ads are following you around, around the internet. Okay, so now I want you to just take some time. This is sort of an activity that I want you to do. I want you to think about a time when you saw an ad and thought, how did they know that? Okay, so think about what was the product or the service? Okay, what online behavior do you think probably triggered it? Was it searching that you had searched for this? You had looked at this? Something happened to trigger them, prompting you with that ad or displaying that ad to you. And then I want you to think about, did that ad feel helpful or did you feel that it was invasive? Now, location data is another major part of digital tracking. Apps like Google Maps or Apple Maps, they can record where you go, even when the app isn't actively open. So if you use Google Maps, you can actually view your location history by visiting google.com/maps/timeline. It's going to show you where you've been over time, which can be surprising or, it could be a little unsettling to you. Now, if you have a Gmail account, you've agreed to targeted advertising as part of the terms and conditions. Now, Google uses your activity across its services to personalize ads that are shown to you. So, for example, you're shopping for a couch. You're visiting furniture websites, you're browsing decor ideas, and you're checking prices. Google recognizes that behavior, and then soon after that, you might see ads for couches on social media or other websites. Now, that's not random, that's personalization at work. Now, I want to pause for a second and connect this directly to digital marketing. Now, as marketers, data helps us make better decisions, but it also comes with responsibility. Now, in your mini digital marketing plan for this module, that assignment, when you're asked how you would use data, it's not asking you to track everything possible. It's asking you to think about what information would actually help a small business to grow, while still respecting customer privacy. Now, if you're curious, you can actually see what Google thinks it knows about you. Now, sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's not. So, for example, Google might list someone as married when they're not. It's an algorithm, and it's making educated guess based on your behavior. Now, you can also adjust your ad personalization settings if you want more or less targeted ads. Now, the textbook also mentions tools like screen time on iPhones or digital well-being on Android. Now, these tools show how much time you spent on the apps and your phone overall. They can be helpful if you're trying to be more aware of your screen habits. Just keep in mind, they're not always perfect. Okay, so for example, if you fall asleep watching YouTube, it might say that you were actively using your phone for the entire time. Now, you can take steps to manage your digital footprint. You can adjust Google's personalization settings You can turn off location tracking. You can use browser tools like Ghostery or disconnect.me. Now, with that said, it does take effort, and that leads to an important question. You know, do we actually have control over our data? On one hand, yes, these settings, they do exist. But on the other hand, it takes time, it takes knowledge, and it takes effort to actually use them. So, due to this imbalance, governments have intervened to establish data privacy laws. Now, here's an important term to know. Personally identifiable information, or PII. PII includes data points that can be tracked directly back to you, such as full name, date of birth, home address, and social security number. Now, businesses that collect this information, they're responsible for protecting it. Now, for a small Etsy shop, the most useful data might be things like, which products get the most views, what keywords bring people to the shop, or which keywords get favored, not someone's full identity, okay? So keep that in mind when you're answering the data questions in your mini marketing plan activity. Okay, let's talk about ethics in data marketing. This is going to be especially important for you as a future digital marketer. You'll likely work with consumer data, and with that comes responsibility. Ethical handling of data builds trust, and trust matters. In 2021, Apple introduced its App Tracking Transparency feature. Now, you've probably noticed or probably seen pop-ups asking whether you want to allow an app to track your activity across other apps and websites. Now, this gives consumers more control, and you can always change your choice later in your settings. Now, even if you're marketing a small business, privacy laws still matter. If customers live in California or Europe, there's certain rules that apply regardless of where the business is located. And this is why digital marketers need to at least have a basic understanding of privacy laws, even at an entry-level position. Now, the General Data Protection Regulation, or the GDPR, went into effect in 2018 in the European Union. Now, even though it's not a U.S. law, it does matter because U.S. businesses must comply if they have European customers. Now, the GDPR requires clear disclosure of data collection, consent before collecting data, explanation of why data is collected, limits on data retention, and reporting of data breaches. In the U.S., California passed the CCPA, which gives consumers the right to know what data is collected, the right to opt out of data sales, and access to their personal data. So if a business has California customers, then it must comply regardless of its location. And then the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPPA, protects children under 13. It restricts marketing to children and requires parental consent for data collection. And then the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act protects financial data, requiring transparency and security. Now, Illinois also passed the Biometric Information Privacy Act, protecting data like fingerprints or facial scans or hand scans. So companies must inform individuals, explain the usage, and then get written consent. Now, two additional laws are also important in this space. HIPAA, which stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, protects your health information. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, protects your educational records. Now, once you're 18, Even your parents can't access your academic records without your consent. Okay, another thing that I want to discuss is net neutrality. It means internet providers must treat all websites equally, not blocking, slowing, or paid prioritization. However, in 2017, net neutrality protections were overturned, meaning that providers are no longer legally required to follow these rules. Now, this is something to watch as technology and policy continues to evolve. So I want you to take a moment and think about how might the loss of net neutrality affect consumers, businesses and marketers. Who actually it benefits, who could be harmed by it, and how might this change online advertising? Okay, so I know this has been a lot of information that I've shared, but these concepts are foundational to understanding digital marketing in a responsible and ethical manner. So, just to kind of look at how this lecture connects to the work that you have for this module. Digital footprints, they're going to kind of help you understand the technology law assignment. Data and privacy will help you answer any kind of ethical or data questions. Different laws that we talked about are going to help you with the research and the reflection. And then the marketer responsibility is going to really help you with the mini plan reasoning. Now, as you work on your mini digital marketing plan for this module, I want you to think like a strategist, okay? You're not just prompting products or promoting products, okay? You're thinking about digital culture, okay? How people behave online and how to create value without being invasive. So for this module, you've got two assignments. One is the mini digital marketing plan, and the other is an assignment on technology laws. Okay, so I want to kind of go over the mini digital marketing plan assignment, and I do have some helpful resources also in the course room, but I want to talk about how you're going to complete this. Now, before we market anything, okay, we need to understand who we're marketing to. And this entire assignment is customer centered, not platform centered. So one of the first things you're going to do, or step one, is you're going to choose a small Etsy shop that has limited sales and reviews, minimal branding or marketing polish, and maybe little to no social presence. So what you're going to do is you're going to write down for step one is once you pick this shop, you're going to write down the shop name and then you're going to include the Etsy link. Now, this shop is going to become your client, okay, for the rest of this assignment. Okay, so for part two, this is going to be your marketing plan, okay? The first part of it is 3 marketing moves. Now, these are concrete actions, not theory. So I want you to think like someone who just got hired. Okay, your client doesn't want buzzwords. They just want to know what you're going to actually do in week 1. Okay, so what you should do is choose 3 realistic, specific actions. Okay, each action should answer something like, what are you changing or launching? Okay, what does it help, or why does it help this shop's customers? Okay, and how will you know that it worked? So some good examples would be that you're going to improve their Etsy listing, their titles, their tags, their photos, based on, what customers search for. Maybe you're going to create short form content, showing how the product is used or made. Maybe you're going to add a post-purchase message that's encouraging reviews or repeat purchases. Or you might suggest offering an incentive, for email signups via packaging or thank you cards. So to write this, you might say, my first marketing move would be, blank, because customers who blank, okay, need blank, okay, and I would measure success by, and then fill that part in. Okay, so that's the second part of, the first part of step 2. And again, I've broken this out. If you look in the course room, I've kind of broken this out for you. Now, the second part of step 2 is basically the 3I principles. How would you apply the 3I principles in your strategy? So the first 3I principle is initiate. Start with the customer. So you're going to look at your Etsy shop from the customer's point of view, and you're going to describe who the customer is. What are they looking for? How the customer's behavior guides your marketing choices. So I want you to keep it simple though, okay? Ask yourself, what problem is the customer really trying to solve here? What would make them stop scrolling and click, okay? Or what would make them trust this shop? So, you might state things like, the customer for this Etsy shop is likely someone who is, okay, and then you fill that in. Or customers are probably searching for, blank. So I would focus on, and then what you focus on. Or you might say, because customer value whatever they value, or whatever you come up with, I would design the marketing around blank. So let me give you sort of an example. Okay. So for instance, the customer for this Etsy shop is likely looking for a unique handmade gift. Okay. Because customers on Etsy search by keywords, I would focus on improving listing titles and photos that clearly show the product and its uses. Now, this allows the customer to decide based on what matters most to them. Okay. All right, so that's the first I, initiate, then iterate, see what works, and then improve it. So what you should do is explain like what they would check, data or feedback. What they would, what you would change, if something's not working. So what would you check, and what would you change if for instance, the shop is not being successful or something's not working? Okay, so you're going to ask yourself, what would I look at after week 1 or week 2? If the customer doesn't click or buy, what would I fix? Okay. So an example of this could be, I would review Etsy analytics to see what listings get the most views and which ones convert into purchases. Now, if a listing has views but no sales, then I would change the photos or descriptions to match what I think the customer might expect. Okay. Now, the third one is integrate, and that means making everything work together. So what you should be doing is describing how the different marketing efforts kind of connect, show how one action supports another. So basically, you're going to ask yourself, how do customers move from one place to another? How does one channel help the next step? Okay. So an example of this could be, I would use Instagram posts to show how the product is used and link those posts directly back to the Etsy shop. The same images and messages would appear in the Etsy listing so customers recognize the brand across platforms. Okay. So, what you could be like when you're writing it, some sentence starters would be like, I would connect blank with blank, so customers have a clear path. Okay, so this is where you, like I said, introduce like maybe different channels, social media. Um, you might say something like social media would support Etsy listings by, and then whatever. Okay, or all platforms would use consistent, photos or something, so that brand feels connected. Okay, so that's the second part of step two. Okay, the third part of step two is to use data efficiently. Okay, so think about it. Data isn't just about numbers, it's about decisions. Okay, so you're going to choose 3 to 5 metrics. And for each, what you're going to do is you're going to explain like what it tells them, and what decision it informs. Okay, so what is it telling you? What is this metric telling you? And then what decisions is it informing you, or is it helping you make? Okay. So, some good, say, Etsy focused examples would be um, traffic sources. That's going to tell us where to focus our marketing effort. Maybe conversion rates, so that'll tell us like how persuasive like the listings are, how well they converted. Favorites versus purchases, so that's going to tell us maybe pricing or trust issues. They liked it, so they favorited it, but did they buy it? So that may be like again telling us something might be off with the pricing. Okay, and then we want to review trends, and that's gonna tell us any kind of messaging or product positioning. So basically, you're gonna say something like, if the data shows, like more favorites than purchases, for instance, then I would respond by researching the pricing, something like that. Okay. And then the fourth part of your marketing plan is the marketing value creation model. And this is more customer journey thinking. Um, Marketing isn't one moment. It's a journey, okay? So what you should do is walk through each phase and describe the actions. You're going to describe how a customer would discover this Etsy shop, decide to buy, and then become a repeated customer, and explain what you would do at each step. Now keep it small, business realistic, not corporate style. Okay, so that's the marketing plan. And again, I have examples in the course room. Okay, so don't feel overwhelmed. Okay, now step three is the reasoning and analysis. So digital culture and platform behavior. People don't just behave online the way that they do offline. Okay, so your strategy needs to reflect that. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to analyze sharing behavior, analyze trends, analyze influencer and micro community impact. Analyze platform norms, Etsy versus TikTok versus Instagram. Okay. So your sentence starter for this might be, because people online tend to, blank, I would adjust the strategy by, and then whatever you change it by. Okay. And then the second part of step three is advantages of digital versus traditional marketing. So this is about fit, not saying traditional marketing is bad. Okay, so some good angles would be lowering costs, um, better targeting, faster testing and iteration, um, clear measurements. Okay, so maybe you could say something like, digital marketing works better for this Etsy shop because blank, while traditional marketing would be limited because, and then blank. Okay, again, I've provided some examples in the course room. Okay, last I want to talk about the technology laws assignment that you're going to be doing, and kind of explain that a little bit. So First part is you're going to give 3 real examples of how you or others leave breadcrumbs online that form that digital footprint that we talked about. Then the second part is you're going to research a law. So you're going to pick a law. So choose one technology or data privacy law from chapter 2 or from this lecture. With the exception of, I don't want you to choose Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Law or net neutrality, because we're going to talk about those individually. Okay, so once you pick your law, then you're going to do additional research and describe 3 substantial things that you learned about it. Use credible sources and make sure that you're citing them and have at least 2 sources, okay? The third thing is you're going to provide an example of the Illinois Biometric Information Privacy Law, why this law is important, or you're going to argue why it might not be necessary, being devil's advocate, okay? Then you're going to have a reflection on the net neutrality law and explain how the recent court rulings against net neutrality could affect the future of the internet. I want you to take a position, better for businesses or consumers, and then explain why. Okay. And then the last thing is to create your own tech law. So propose a new law for the web, mobile, IoT, whatever, and explain what problems that it solves, who it protects, and why it matters. Okay, again, I do have a lot of additional information in the course room. Make sure that you take a look at that and reach out to me if you run into any issues.